Hey guys, sorry I'm messing with the camera. I forgot to do that real quick, so hang with me. Try and get this thing. There we go. Still not quite right. There, that's better. So, hey, how you guys doing? I'll be moving that camera around anyway, so I just didn't want you to look at like from here up. Kind of crazy who we got here. Hey, Ediani. Hey, Shayna, Sandy, Liz, Nita. Hey. Spotted Bear Knits from Montana. Welcome. Let's see who else. I know there's somebody else. AdView Life. I don't know that I know your name. So those that I didn't call out by name, please tell me your name. Hey, Liz. Hey, Patty. Hey. All right. Bonnie, thank you. Thank you. That'll be easy to remember. I get called Bonnie a lot. And for those of you that don't know, I'm Connie. Just reading some comments in case it's something I needed to know before I get going, because some of you are so sweet to quick like say, hey, this ain't working, that ain't working. I just want to make sure somebody wasn't trying to tell me something wasn't working. So awesome. Adriana, thank you. Hey, Pia, I haven't forgotten about you. That's this weekend as well. Okay. I've got you and somebody else that I've been, I finally found the time this weekend. So I will be getting back to you. Hey, Yvette. Okay, show of hands. Who's working with me? Who's watching? I know Shayna was working. And it doesn't matter which one you're doing. I'm just curious because I always, like I say on my sew-alongs on Sunday nights, I just want to know so that I know how fast or slow I need to move. Shayna's working as I thought. Okay. Hi, Shirley. Okay. Yeah, I kind of figured most people are probably watching. Eddie, are you working or are you sewing with me? Okay, Pia, watching. Yvette's watching. Awesome. Yeah, you guys don't have to do it with me like on the sew-along. Sometimes it's easier for you to watch and then go back and redo them too. So that's cool. We're all good with that. So this is going to be a step-by-step thing. We're not going to do the full quilt today, okay? This is meant to be a span of 3 to 4 lives, maybe 5, and we'll just see how it goes. And then obviously once we're done with one, we'll go on to another one, just like all the others. We'll just kind of keep going and keep learning about quilting as well. I am not one of those die hard by the rule quilters. So I apologize already ahead, and I'm going to have to say this at the beginning of every video. This is how I do it. Okay. I know there's hard, fast rules for quilting. Those of you that know me, rules are here. I'm like this. So I'll show you how I do it. And if you don't like how I do it, that's fine. There's a million other ways too. And then there's also the hard, fast ways. And those are out on YouTube as well. I'm doing it more for those of you that want to make fun quilts, want to make, just want to know that quilting shouldn't be intimidating. So that's what I'm going to show you, but I've been doing this most of my life. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to do things that don't have to be the hard way, or the maybe doesn't quite work so well for you way and you need to do another way, or maybe this way doesn't work but the other way does, you know, that kind of thing. So we'll be all good. Awesome, Shayna. Hey, Sarah, glad you joined us. Okay, and some you never know, Sarah, some of your fabrics could eventually end up in these quilts. Just saying. I've been known to do crazy stuff like that. So anyway, what we're starting today, and the reason why I said block or strip quilt is they are sewn together somewhat the same. I mean, it's one of those where if you can do one, you can do the other. The strip quilt is probably the absolute basic beginner. And a strip quilt, for those of you that are not aware, and I posted pictures on Discord, but if you didn't know, now this is a version, okay, guys, so don't bear with me on this. I did a really large quilt for somebody, and I had done a little too much of the top. I wanted to make sure I had enough when I was piecing it together. But a strip quilt is just basically lines. Like I said, this is a variation. So just realize it's just these straight lines all the way down. And it's usually like one fabric and one fabric and one fabric. This style of quilt was not meant to be like that. But anyway, that's what a strip quilt is. And this was another version of that one that I did for somebody else. But super easy. We just work with strips of fabric and then you sew them all together. That's how easy a strip quilt is. And they don't have to be this thin. They can be whatever width you want. If you want yours an inch wide when you're done, which is very tedious, I'm just going to tell you, I wouldn't, if you've never quilted before, I wouldn't suggest starting there. You can do it, but it makes me even bonkers. So you can do 1 inch pieces. You can do 1.5 inches, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5. You can do some that are this wide. You can do some just that are, the quilt top takes 4 pieces of fabric. It's up to you how you want your final quilt to look, but they're still strip quilts no matter how wide that piece of fabric is. And then the other one I talked about that we could be doing is a block quilt. And I did not do one of those, sorry. But it's basically made up of squares. And we just take these squares and you sew them together in a line, much like you would do, say, this, that one piece right there. So say this is a square, that's a square, that's a square. You sew them together in one line. So they become like a strip, okay? This is why I'm saying they're very similar. So you make your strip out of blocks, and then you go and sew the blocks together, hence the strips. So the only thing is, on a block quilt, we have to make sure that when we sew them together, your corners, so say like you're like this, like these two are together. So when you put another two, you got to make sure that they match up right here in that corner. So that's where it gets a little tricky. I'll show you how to do it, but your seams have to be really exact. So all the way throughout the quilt, you have to make sure whatever seam allowance you're doing, whether it's a 1/4 or 3/8, 1/2 inch, whatever, that you are exact. And that's how they match up. So those take a little bit more time because, as we all know, when we sew faster, things go like this on the lines on the sewing machine, where if you sew a little slower, you can control it. So, but I'm not saying don't try it. If that's what you want to do, then you try this. And if you like the look of the block quilt better, I'm not trying to sway you away. I'm just telling you that is the difference between the two. And so you choose which one you want to do. And we can also do, I'm big on mashups. So we can take bits and pieces of each. So say you do a strip quilt and you want to do strip, 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 strip. Maybe you want to throw in a row of block at the bottom and a row of block at the top, or a row of blocks along the side. Or you want to do strips and then make it wide enough that you can throw in 3 or 4 blocks in the middle, so that your strips, we'll have to measure all this if that's what you want to do. But your strips, say like you've got 3 strips and it matches the width of this block when they're sewed together, so that you could just sew a block in every now and then too. Lots of ways we can change things up, guys. That's why we're starting with these really simple quilts, and you can make so many different variations and people won't even know that you started with a very, very, very simple quilt. And it's all in a matter of cutting it differently once it's all sewn together. So you can cut it apart. So you sew all your strips together like this, and say this is another piece that you've got that you sewed, and you just kind of want to shift it a little. And when you put it together, so we'll go through all that when we start piecing stuff together, but just realize we can go so many variations with this. That's why I'm saying I don't know how many sew alongs we're going to do just doing this, because this one we could go a million directions with. But we're going to start simple and we'll go from there. Hey, Sandra. Hey, Brandy. I'm sorry, I was reading Brady. It's Brandy. Hey, Dolphy. Hey, Jacqueline. Wow. Haven't talked to you in a while. Okay, well, Jacqueline, you'll learn. That's all good. You can do this, Jacqueline. If you can sew 2 pieces of fabric together, you can do this. Stabilizer for the t-shirt quilt squares. Okay, if you've never, ever done a quilt before, I'm going to tell you to do a quilt before you do a t-shirt quilt, okay? It's not difficult, it's just, it's tricky if you don't know how to put a quilt together, because the t-shirts themselves are very wonky. And you will notice when you go cut them out, no matter how perfect you cut them out, even with stabilizer, that t-shirt material is so thin that it does what it wants to do. I've made a million t-shirt quilts. So that's the only reason I'm saying is if you've never done a quilt, I want you to do a quilt first, then you can do a t-shirt quilt. I just want you to know the nuances of a quilt before you touch that. The type of stabilizer I would use on a t-shirt quilt is an iron-on medium weight. And you can also, I've done this, I don't recommend it. I do it when I'm in a crunch. I will use muslin in place of the stabilizer, and then I zip around the t-shirt square with my my serger and use that. Now, again, you've got to, I would go stabilizer, guys, unless you're used to doing them, because that gets really tricky. You've got to pin. So I'm just saying, you can use muslin, but it's not something that's easy to work with. I know you will see that out there. That's the only reason I bring it up. So do stabilizer if you can. Hey, Zoa. Hey, Nero. Hey, that's okay, Nero. We all have, our lives are all crazy right now. Everybody's life is just going, and I can't wait to get back into the lives. I can't wait until I can actually start watching like Amber's lives on Monday night here. Hopefully in about 3 weeks I'll be on. I think I only have 2 more weeks of traveling. I think it's either 2 or 3, maybe 4. I don't know. I've got to talk to my project manager and see how much longer he needs me to keep going. But we're right at the end of the project. The project kind of ends and kind of doesn't at the end of the month. And so I'm kind of not sure. But I think maybe only 2 more weeks traveling. So then maybe in 3 weeks I'll be able to watch. I can't wait. Okay, so let's get moving here. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. All right, so today we're going to work on how to cut, the types of fabrics, how you want to put them together. If you haven't picked fabrics, how to pick fabrics. And then once you've figured out how to cut, and if I'm still talking and you're working, Shayna, I'm looking at you, then you go ahead and keep cutting while I'm talking. I've got a lot of my stuff, I've got a jelly roll and I have got a charm pack, and I'll show you what those are in a second here. My jelly roll is not together anymore. Sierra, I don't know, she had texted me a couple days ago or so, or yesterday, or talked to me live, I can't remember, and asked if she could use a jelly roll, and it just totally blew my mind. I was like, oh yeah, duh. Yeah, I didn't even think to tell you guys you could buy a jelly roll or a charm pack. This is also a good stash buster. So that's why I was kind of having a hard time telling you guys how much fabric to get, especially if you just want to mess around and learn. You can easily make a small lap quilt or a doll quilt and start there as well. And the doll quilt can be whatever size you want. But a lap quilt, if you have a senior center near you, those are great things to give. So if you want to really, really practice before you start one, make a gazillion of those and take them over and donate them. They will love that. I am a hospice volunteer, so I am in the nursing homes a lot. And those lap quilts, oh my gosh, those people, those are good not only for warmth, guys, but they are really, really good for those who are having dementia or Alzheimer's, whichever you want to call it. Because as a volunteer, I can sit while they're on, this is on their lap, and talk to them about these pieces, different pieces of fabric. And these different pieces of fabric, it's just like a little kid, that some things will catch their eye and others won't. Something may jog a memory. I need some of those helps to break through to them somehow sometimes. Some of my patients are hard to get through to and others are not. And so I grasp at anything I can that is right around them that they're used to seeing, and we start talking, and this would be absolutely amazing for me. And you'd be surprised at how many different ways I can get them to even say a word or engage with me for a blip of a moment just by some of these fabrics. So I'm just saying, if you guys really want to practice, this would be amazing, because this would be actually, if I took this and cut it and then set it off on the side here, I would already have a lap quilt. I would just have to put a backing on it and finish sewing it up. And I could probably put a muslin inside if I wanted to, the quilt interior on the inside if I wanted to, for a little warmth and heaviness. It doesn't have to if it's gonna be a lap quilt. These are gonna go through the wash a lot. So the inside though, if you did put that in there, that would help it go through the wash a lot better. But if you don't do it and you just put some kind of a backing, you could even do a minky. And then you just practice like your quilting on it, and then just make sure it holds it together as to one piece. It'll go through their wash so well. So anyway, just a thought, guys. That would really be amazing. Yes, Jacqueline, I know you're 7 hours ahead. Those of you that don't know, Jacqueline's in France. So I'm just so honored that she's here today. I got to meet her briefly on our Zoom, and it was so sweet. Her little girl was on there talking to us too. It was so awesome. So, okay, so let's talk about types of fabrics, okay? Real quick, I brought up charm pack. A charm pack looks like this, guys. Oops. You'll see these in the quilt stores, and you may know what they're for, or you've wondered what they're for. These are usually come out when a new fabric line comes out. So like this one's from Moda. And the fabric line that came out was Ready, Set, Snow when I bought this. And so it's going to have, I think it has two of each. Yes, it'll have two squares of each of the designs that make up that fabric line. So these are, what size are these? I should know this off the top of my head. These are 5-inch squares. So these are really great if you want to do a fast block quilt. You just go grab one of these, and there's 42 of them, and you can have a quilt top really quick. And they come out pretty much with everything. I mean, this was one that I bought and it broke open, so I don't think I've got all of them, but this is just kind of a fun little pack that came out with that. So it's just kind of a summery, bright one. The Christmas ones are always fun. In fact, I think the one I was showing you was out of that. Okay, so then a jelly roll, same concept, comes out when they put out a whole new line of fabric, and it's got a strip of each one of the fabrics, sometimes 2. I can't remember how many. It's probably 42, just like that. And they are pre-cut for you guys. And these are 1.5-inch strips. And they're cut the width of the fabric. So if you take your fabric, like you buy it, and you normally lay it down, it's folded in half, and you run your ruler at 1.5 inches and cut. That's what these are, okay? So they're already cut for you. Now, the only thing is, these are 1.5 inches wide. So I was telling you that that inch strip, that's what this is going to become. These are really pretty. Trust me, these are very pretty, but you have to be very careful when you're sewing, because the smaller your strip gets, the more exact you have to be, because your eye is going to pick up on the fact that it's doing this. So you have to be very slow until you get really good at it. And I'm still Speedy Gonzalez, trust me. And I still see this when I do it. So be aware, very slow when you do these. Inch, when these are done in their inch, they are fabulous looking. It is just so stunning. And you don't have to do the cutting. That's what I love. You just bring them home, you start sewing, you know, and you can buy a charm pack and a jelly roll out of the same one fabric and go at it if you want, or you can get, you know, like a charm pack of plains and this. Now, the fun thing is, these are your basic shapes, no matter what you're going to do for the different ways we're going to cut things, and it's going to blow your mind out of the way once you sew things together. You don't have to sew all these little pieces, all these little squares together. You don't have to cut them to be something that you sew one after another, after another, after another, okay? The shortcut is you decide how wide you want your blocks, if you're going to do blocks, okay? Or your rectangles, if you're going to do rectangles, because that's a possibility as well with strips. So you sew your long strips together. And so you get that whole fabric of your strips. Say you've got 4 of them put together. And they go in succession. And I'll do this up. I just hadn't done it. I'm just kind of throwing this out there. So if you're not following me, that's cool. I'm going to show you again probably next time, because I will come with that already done up, and I keep dropping these. My hands aren't big enough to hold on to them. So you've got, say you've got 4 cut like this, or sewn together like this, okay? Or 6 or 2 or 3 or whatever. Well, then once it's done, you lay it down and you decide, oh, well, I want my squares to be, or this area here to be 2 inches wide. That strip I want 2 inches wide. So then you lay your ruler down and cut the whole thing 2 inches. You've got a strip of 4 already done. And then you take that and you either sew it onto one of these, or you have, say these are really wide. say they're 2, 4, 6 inches wide and you've got 4 of them, all of a sudden, if they're 4 inches wide and you cut them so that the strip you cut is 4, you now have a 4 by 4 block. And so you've got 4 blocks already put together. So I'll show you that. That'll all be part of this. That's why I'm saying this is why we're starting where we're starting here, because it's all super simple stuff, just looking at it in a different way. It's okay. That's all right, Sarah. That's why we have, you know, the replay is our friend at times, because we all have that. And I don't know if Saturday is going to be the day I land on for this. It's all just until I get done with my travel. So. All right. You can cut, Shayna, if you want. So if, Shayna, what you need to decide is, are you doing a strip or are you doing blocks? Now, if you're going to do blocks and you want to do it the way that I just told you, so you don't have to sew everything together, then you decide the size of blocks you want to use. The bigger the blocks, just the easier it is. So if I was going to do it out of this size, I would cut my strips of fabric 5 inches wide. And then you go ahead and go in there and sew a bunch of them together to create that strip like I was telling you. And then iron. Guys, iron, 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 iron. You're never going to hear me emphasize ironing more than I am during a quilt. Okay, iron after everything. So when you sew things together, you iron. Iron your seams open if you can. Now, if you're doing a serger, you can't iron your seams open. You can do a serger. It's just your seams will get a little bit bulkier. Not much, but a little bit. I do my t-shirt quilts with a serger just because I want that extra stability for the weight, because the t-shirt and then the stabilizer and everything, it does, like Sandy was saying, it gets heavy. It gets heavy quick. And when you're picking it up like this, I just cringe when I'm moving it around, because I'm like, oh my gosh, if somebody goes to pick this up, there's so much weight on those seams. So I do a serger on those so that I know everything is really good and tight. But you're going to sew and then you're going to iron. So you're going to sew a bunch of things together and then you're going to go over to your iron and you're going to iron your seams open. And you have to do this, guys. You have to. It makes the biggest difference in the world. Everything comes out so much nicer, so much easier. You have so many less problems. So I'm just telling you, you and your iron are going to be one real quick. And don't use your heat press. Iron, because you have to use the tip. And I've got this thing on right now, so I can't touch it. But this tip is going to be a big thing, is you're going to use it to help you push while you're pulling your finger, and you're going to push. You're going to learn how to do that real fast. And then make sure you have spray, water spray. Now, I know I've told you guys this before on my lives for the clothes. Find yourself, if you don't have a good sprayer, find a sprayer in your house. This is my face spray. And when it's empty, it becomes my water spray for my sewing, because the mist is amazing. And it doesn't come out in big drops. It comes out as a mist. And I can saturate that fabric a lot faster. So if you can go around and you don't have to, you know, it doesn't have to be anything expensive. It's just something that you're using. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my, that really sprays really, really nice. I am just going to save that when it's done with whatever you're using it for, or whatever you're using it for. If you need it right away, dump it into another sprayer that you have empty that maybe doesn't matter, so you can use it. But this is really good. And face sprays are going to be one of those that's going to put out a real nice mist for you. So just saying, that's kind of one of my biggest tips right there. From salvage to salvage. Yes, Shayna. So what you're going to want to do, Shayna, is you're going to Make sure your fabric is ironed. And it doesn't have to be super perfect, but you do want it to not have any big wrinkles. So again, did I say iron? So make sure you lay it out, and if it's got wrinkles, you take it over the ironing board and iron it, okay? So let's quick make some cuts, okay? Now I'm gonna pull you guys down onto the table with me for a moment and show you how to go about doing that if you're not familiar. And I'm sure a lot of you are, but I'm just going to assume that you're not, okay? All right. So we're going to lay our fabric out, and I'm going to do a muslin. I'm going to use these things that I was showing you I had. It's a Christmas one, so it's perfect right now for me to start making stuff like that. So I've got my fabric folded, and I've got it ironed. Now, the one thing I don't have is a real nice straight edge here. So I'm going to take my fabric, and I'm going to fold it one more time. So it's like that, okay? And you make sure you line up your selvage along that fold so everything lays nice and flat. Now that's going to possibly mean that this moves over a little more. That might be how bad out of straight it is. So you put it on your cutting mat, and this is where you use your quilt rulers, okay? It doesn't have to be a long one like this. It can be a shorter one, but make sure it spans the width of your quilt. You don't want to be moving it, okay? You want to put it down once and be done, okay? So there's two different ways you can do this. If you have a cutting mat that has marks on it, then you can use the marks, or you can flip the fabric and use your ruler. So for right now, I'm just going to straighten my edge. So that's what you want to do. You want to straighten your edge. So make sure the second fold down here, because my selvage is up here and my first fold of my fabric is up here. So my second fold is down here, and I line it up with, for me, it's just about 2/3. I don't like to be at the edge because my ruler can move. So I always put it kind of about in the middle if I've got a longer ruler. So you've got one of these right here that you're going to line it up with. And I can't look at that and do the same. So line that up so it's nice and straight. Get your rotary cutter, hold it tight, and push hard and cut it straight. So you've now made your first cut. Now we're not going to open this. We're going to leave this the way it is, okay? You do not want to open it because you've straightened it. The minute you open it, you could end up losing that straight edge when you put it back together again. So now I've lined it up with my marks here. And if I'm going to cut a 5-inch square, then, you just figure out your 5 inches, lay your ruler, cut your 5, cut your 5, cut your 5, however many cuts you're going to make. With this one, okay, so I'm going to do bigger strips in between my smaller strips. You don't have to do everything the same. That's the other thing. You can make your strips varying widths. You can go 1.5 inches, 2, 3, 2, 4, 5, 7. Whatever you want. This is your quilt. When you're done, you will do what you like to do with it. It's fun sometimes to have things just a little bit different. Other times it's really fun to have everything exactly the same. So for your first ones, I just want you guys to play around and have fun. There are really no rules. So if you're doing a stash buster, you use what you've got in your stash, and they're going to be all different varying widths. And so you just cut what you get and go from there. Now, there will be ways to put it together if they're all varying different ones. So, hey, Marissa. Okay. And as you guys are coming in, don't forget to hit the like button for me, please. That really helps me out so much. All right, so I'm going to do some 3-inch strips, which is going to be just a little bit wider than my 1.5 inches over there. And make sure if you're having problems with your blade, it's either you need a sharper blade, a newer blade, or maybe starting at this edge here. Sometimes my blade doesn't like it and it'll bunch the fabric up. And so I'll start just a little bit in and go, and then come back and roll backwards. Just leave like maybe a 1/2 inch and roll backwards, and then recut it again. And it works every time. And this is just a plain fabric to go with my other fabrics over here. So I'm doing kind of an off-white because my strips have a lot of off-white in them. Okay, so I'm going to start with 4 for now. What I'm probably going to end up doing is these are just going to be interspersed. And I may end up having to cut a couple more once I start laying things out. Now, so we've talked about cutting. I'm going to show you guys something, and I'm sure some of you have seen this and maybe some others haven't. So we're talking about if you're going to do, doesn't matter if you're doing squares or you're doing strips or you're doing a variation of all the things. When it comes to laying this stuff out, what do we do? How do we go about that? Well, you can do it several ways, but this way is so easy. And you can put this up on your wall and leave your quilt and sew from this as you do your quilt, and walk away one night, come back, it's still laid out. It's still there. What am I talking about? A big piece of flannel on your wall. You see that? Big piece of flannel. Now, what do I do with that? Okay, let me show you. I set you guys down here. All right, so we're going to go lay out a quilt. And I'm just going to take a bunch of these with me here. So I'm not quite sure what I want to do. So I'm just going to start randomly putting some things up. So I've cut all my squares. So that's basically what you're seeing. My squares are cut. All right, so you just keep doing that for however many you've got. And I would do this against a hard wall. I'm just doing this to show you guys. It's obviously, you know, this is my bookcase, so it's open behind. So it doesn't really want to stay as well when I push against it. So what if I say, oh yeah, I love this. Okay, I'm just going to leave it there. Just stand back and look at it for a while. Say tomorrow I come in, I'm like, thought I loved that. I don't love that. I want this here. And I want that there. Okay, now I love it. See, if you had a hard wall behind instead of just that open, you can mash it up against the wall and they stay. So you see what I'm saying? And then you can just sew from this. So when I go to sew, I'm going to take like the first 2. And then I'm going to sew them. And then I'm going to come back and grab my next one and sew them and so forth, however long. And then you bring that, you iron that really nice. You bring that, you put that back up there. And then you do the next row, iron it, put that back up there. and on the way down, or whether you're going this way or whatever. So then when you come back, then you grab the top one and the next one, sew that together, iron it. Then you come back and grab the next one. So you always know how you're laying something out. And it gets really good when you start doing really random things and you really want to play with sizes and shapes, or like you've got several strips. So if I was going to do several of the longer strips and I wanted to do like the blocks with the strips and then the blocks, you could easily lay that out until you liked it, and just keep playing with everything until you get it the way you like it. And then if you've got this in up against a wall, then it's going to stay because you've mashed everything onto that flannel really well. And all you do is you just push the fabric up there and it holds. And then when you leave for the night, you just leave it up there. Hopefully you've got it in a place where nobody's going to go and mess with it. And if not, put a sheet over it or something so that people don't mess with it. And then come back the next day, take a sheet down or something, and just keep right on working, or the next afternoon or whenever you have time. It's always right there. Saves me so many times when I'm doing things. Hey, Anna. Thanks, Lauren. I didn't see you come in. Sorry. Yeah, felt boards are amazing. And I know a lot of people use them for a lot of different things. So I just wanted to show you guys that, because that is such a help for laying stuff out, because I know sometimes when you start laying stuff out on the table, you can see it, but you can't. Where if you get it up where you're looking at it in front of you and you get back from it, you might see some things that you wouldn't have seen when it was laying straight out in front of you on the table. Or you may love it. Like I was saying, you may love it, and then you walk away and come back 10 minutes later and something jumps out at you that didn't before. And you're like, no, that's got to move. And so you can just keep moving it until you get it the way you like it. Then what I also do is, once I like it, I take a picture of that whole thing, just in case. You never know. Something happens to the flannel for some reason. It hits the floor and takes everything with. You've got the picture, and then you can recreate it if you need to. Hey, Christina. Yeah, Patty, I've done that. And when I had to do a bunch of the t-shirt quilts, I was doing a very modern layout for my girlfriend. And I love modern layout. That's so me. So we were doing a real abstract thing with the t-shirts. And then I was adding in 2 colors of plain cotton. So we were doing like gray and black, I think, on one. And then we did white and black on another one or whatever. And so it was a real random layout. And I put that, I was living in a different place at the time. And my bedroom was perfect for this. It had this really long wall. And I put the flannel up, and it was just this much shy of the length of the quilt. So I made it work. But I put it up there, and I would throw that stuff up as I got the t-shirts kind of prepared. And then I kept rearranging. And the thing was, my bed was right in front of that wall. So I'd get into bed and I'd look at it for a little while. And then I'd maybe get up and move 1 or 2. And then the next day I'd wake up and still either love it or move a couple more pieces until I got the space, the exact layout I liked. And then I took a picture. And actually, I think I had to take 2 because it was such a long one. And that picture was invaluable, because she was like, I want to see it. I want to see it. And I'm like, well, here, use your imagination. And so I would send her that a little bit, or as I pieced it together with the plain pieces of fabric, then I would put it back up on that wall too. That was huge. I had to do that, because when you're doing a modern layout on a t-shirt quilt, you have to make sure you create strips. Otherwise, piecing it together is not going to work very well. And so that's another reason why I had to move things around, because I had to create ways to piece together, whether it was a short way and a long way and then another short way or whatever. But you'll understand that when you start putting quilts together, that they all don't have to go together long, 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 or short, short, short. you know, when you start doing things a little more randomly, you'll sometimes have some long puts together this way and then a couple to go together this way. And yeah. Hey, Faye. Hey, Sandy. Hey, hey. So anyway, and it doesn't have to be a beautiful piece of fabric. You can go grab something on a clearance rack. It doesn't have to be anything of any special weight or type. Flannel is flannel. It works great for those. So anyway. All right. Shayna, have you decided? You want to share with me what you're doing? Or share with all of us what you're doing? That is nice, Patty. That's what I was doing also. I did a memory quilt for the girl that I did the quilts for, her friend. Her dad had passed away probably about a couple of years before I did the quilts. I did one for her and one for each of her siblings. Now, this is where it got interesting and it turned out so cool. When I find the pictures, I can post them or show you guys next time. I'm not going to go searching, but I made them out of his ties, his shirts, his ball caps, and they all had something on them except for the ties. The ties that she gave me had special memories tied to them because they always saw their dad wearing this tie like on Christmas and this tie at this wedding and that kind of stuff. And so her and I had to pick out a quilt pattern, an actual pattern that would be conducive to all of the different types of things we were working with. And so the pattern we came up with wasn't a simple like square kind of thing. It had a pattern to it. And oh my gosh, they turned out so much better than I even thought they were ever going to turn out. It was a long process, but wow, what a gift for each one of them, because they each went through and picked out specific shirts and ties and caps that meant something to them personally. And so I had to keep those completely separate because that person's quilt got all those. And then I had another like 2 big bags of just random. They all knew it. It really didn't mean anything, but they knew they'd seen dad in it. And so I could use those with those quilts. And then I also had special colors that would go with their houses. So one person's was blue, I think, if I remember right, like a lighter blue, and then another one was neutral, and another one might have been taupe or something. I don't remember. And so I also then was able to cross over and sprinkle a little bit of each other's into each other's quilts, because I had taken the bulk of everything and put it into theirs and still had leftovers on some things. And oh my gosh, it was one of those where when I took it over there, they cried. It was, oh my gosh, it was so cool. So I need to find those pictures and show you guys, because you don't make big money doing those. And it wasn't about the money. It was about the memories at that moment. And I was so honored to be able to do that for them, and that they trusted me with all of those items, because, you know, I could have easily just screwed them up and lost all their memories for them. So I was having fun, but I was also really, really protective of all that stuff while I was working on it. So aware every time I was touching things. 4 pieces of each. Okay. And that's the one thing too, guys. Until you really know what size you're making or whatever, I don't want you to get caught up in the mechanics of figuring out how much you need. You can always go and cut more like Shane is going to do. Start out with, you know, a random. The reason why I said 5 fabrics or more is just because I want you guys to really have kind of a fun quilt to start. You know, it doesn't have to be like this fabulous thing, but, you know, it's fun. The more colors, the better. It's fun. And if you only have 2 or 3 colors, that's fine. There's no problem. But there is, you know, there's times when 2 or 3 colors and you do it right, they can be so show-stopping. So anyway, those are later topics. We can get into design and processes and things like that down the road. That's definitely not something for today, tomorrow, or next month. But, you know, we will work our way there. Okay, so let's start piecing. Okay, now once you guys have got through your cutting, and if you're having problems with this, be careful, because when you press down and then you go to cut, if you've never used one of these before, and I'm sure most of you have, but if you have not, this ruler can slide. I'm just going to tell you, and then all of a sudden, and you've gone. So there are ways. They do make these little things that you can put on the bottom of your ruler that'll keep that from happening. I also just will put some, like, what am I trying to say, like painter's tape, little tiny squares of painter's tape on there, and then it comes right off super easy. And you can just put it down, and then it keeps this, because it's so slick, it'll take a little bit of that slickness away, and it's not going to raise your ruler so much. It's real super thin. So just realize when you get this onto your cutting mat, if you're not aware of what I'm talking about, just lay the ruler on your cutting mat and move it. And that's how easy it can slide on your fabric as well. So practice a little bit on some smaller pieces of fabric before you start cutting into your good stuff. And that way you are aware of the nuances and the little tricks that come with it. And you'll figure out how you have to hold it, how you have to hold this at what angle. Okay. And it doesn't take long to learn, but just don't pick everything up and go, or you're going to be like, oh, I wished I wouldn't have done that. So, all right. Mia, Mia. Hey, hey. Okay. Now let me move you again. So let's come over to the sewing machine. Now the reason why I'm telling you white thread goes with everything unless you're dealing with black or navy. In quilting, for the most part, I use either black thread or white thread. I don't use any other colors. And it's not going to show. So your really super darks, your navies and your blacks, you're going to use black. Pretty much everything else you can use white. If you feel like on your browns and stuff that get just dark enough that you feel like, oh, black needs to go in there, put the black in there. But you really don't need to have a bajillion colors. If you want to have a couple other, for various reasons, that's fine. But I go through white thread, and I just realized I need to go buy more white thread. I've gone through 3 of these already in the last month, and I'm almost done, and I'm on my last little tiny one of white up there. So you will plow through thread like no other. All right, so standard needle. This is the one where you want to make sure you have a sharp needle, okay? You will probably go through needles, a couple of needles throughout your quilt top, because you're going to want to change those at about every 8 to 10 hours of sewing. And just because it does matter. It will matter in your stitch quality. It will matter in how well you travel a little, believe it or not. A sharp needle is easier to keep a straight line than one that is maybe dulling down or has a burr that you don't know has a burr. So just be aware, have plenty of needles. They don't have to be anything but universal. And since you're dealing with cotton, you know, just your standard size is fine for your machine. Straight stitch. I tend to use, again, mine goes from about a 2.2 up to 6, I think, 5 or 6. I should know this. Yeah, a 5. Mine goes up to a 5. So I keep mine at about Sorry, I'm hearing things. I think it's the deer getting into the cat food, and I'm trying to train my deer that that is not for them, and I'm losing. And I'm trying to hide the cat food, and they still find it and still get to it, no matter how well I try and get it to where I don't think they can get to it. So I'm winning this battle. I have to put it under my car now. It's really sad that I have to put it completely under my car, but it's working. Anyway, sidebar. I run it about a 2.42628. I wouldn't go anything much higher than a 3, just because it gets pretty wide, and then these quilt tops do have to hold a little bit of weight if you make them a little bigger. And so I always like to keep my stitches a little closer together and a little smaller. Okay. So I'm going to run at about a 2.6 right now. And I'm going to run also for my seam widths. Let me see here. I'm going to run a 1/4 inch. And I'm going to just use my jelly roll along with some of my blocks. Just a second, guys. I really think that is a deer out there doing something. No, just my neighbor. I forgot my neighbor was outside. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to read you, Shayna. Got to go forward here. Juki straight stitch. Okay, cool. Yeah, Mia, I hear you. I try and get that on sale too. Hey, Juana. Okay, so 1/4 inch seam, Shayna. Unless you want to do 3/8 or half for whatever reason. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just know that no matter what you start with, always keep that seam width. So if you have to write it down somewhere so you don't forget. And I know I've always told you guys, when you start sewing, you always do the reverse stitch to lock it in. Quilt tops, you don't do that. You just go, okay? And I always make sure I have my sewing machine set so that the needle stops in the down position. If you have that on your machine, make sure you do that. And that's just sewing in general, but especially on quilting, I love to have that, because if I stop and I'm trying to adjust something, I know that nothing is going to be moved. I've moved things so many times when I'm adjusting and didn't realize that that wasn't down. And then the way I realized it was when it was too late and it had moved on me. So you're going to want to do just a real slow, methodical stitch, and just go ahead and get it caught and get out of the gate, get going good. But if you also have a speed control on your machine, go ahead and set that, because I've got one and I can put it all the way down to the slowest speed. And so I've got my foot floored right now on the foot pedal, and that's as fast as it'll go. So that's another good thing to make sure that you're going to get an even seam, because with me going slow, until I get used to it, this allows me to get used to watching, because I've got my mark right here on my foot, which you guys can't see. And yeah, I'll show you my foot. Well, I'll show you when I get to the end here. I'm going to go ahead and speed through this, and I'll show you my foot. And then you guys can, maybe yours will have the same. See, now this is where I want to stop, and I'm doing these strips, and I'm not pinning. So I just want to make sure. I saw that they were starting to change just a little bit, so I want to stop and make sure everything, because with these strips being as long as they are, you're not going to make them perfect all the way down. You're going to have to probably stop and adjust just a little bit. And this sewing is so good for you guys when you're home, you're tired from work, or you're stressed out and you can't think to do any other kind of sewing. You can always strip. You can always do this, and it is so cathartic. If you've got stuff already cut and ready to go, and all you have to do is sit down and do it. Okay, now I'll show you my foot. And I know I've tried to show you guys this before, but it's got a clear inset, and then it's got metal that starts in a certain spot. And if you can see, as soon as it decides it's going to focus, and I know I'm not the only one that has this issue with these cameras not wanting to focus. Come on, focus. Anyway, trust me, there's a line like right here that goes down on both sides. And I use that so many times, and that is really close to 1/4 of an inch for a seam. Really, really close. Let me measure it. And you can measure it yourself when you find one of those. I mean, it's just like a hair off from 1/4 of an inch. Now, 1/4 of an inch may not be enough seam allowance for you guys. It is pretty thin, so I wouldn't use it if you're going to do a big, heavy quilt. But if you're just doing a little toddler quilt or a lap quilt or a baby a doll quilt, it's plenty wide enough, if that's what you want to do. Otherwise, I would probably do 3/8 to 1/2. No, Juana, there really isn't. You can use any straight stitch machine. You can use any machine that has a straight stitch will be a quilting machine. There's nothing special about what we're doing here. So yeah, any machine will work. That's okay, Shirley. I'm glad you came by. Yeah, just keep up with us, Shirley. We're going to be moving piece by piece here. We're going to go through how to put the quilt together and the whole bit. So it's not all today. I'm going to give everybody time to get their quilt top made before we move on. And then I got to make mine too, so we can do this. So anyway, so what I'm talking about, and I'm just kind of finger pressing right now, but I need to go to the machine and press this open. Now I can do a couple more on each side before I go press, or I can press each one as I get done. That's up to you. There's times when I have a pressing party and I do all my strips and then I go and I slog it out at the iron, and it does take a long time. So it's just however it works for you. All right, so let me do 1 or 2 more of these on here. And I've got like all these, I forgot I had this. And then when Sierra said, can I use a jelly roll? I was like, oh yeah, I have one that came apart over there. So I've got this whole jelly roll of Christmas fabrics. It is the prettiest thing ever. And I've been saving it to make a quilt. And I'm so glad I did, because I want to use this one now. But I got to like, look how wrinkled they are, because they've been kind of, I tried to carefully put them on a shelf, and it just, there is no careful sometimes. So yeah, but I want to put a bunch of these together and use this up. And I'm excited because jelly rolls and charm packs and all those, they've got a whole bunch of other different things too. Man, I can't think off the top of my head. There's a couple of other different cuts as well that you can buy. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just go look them up on the website, just on Google. You just Google them and Google charm packs, Google jelly rolls, and they'll bring up all the different ones. Google Moda. This is Moda Fabrics. And they're really known for having a lot of them. Yeah, Sarah, so true on everything. So true. They know us too well. But, you know, pre-cut pieces are worth their weight in gold as well, guys. So if you can get some of these things, even on a clearance sale, when you're wanting to do some real fast quilts, keep watching some of the fabric sites, and they will clearance out some that aren't selling as well. There's maybe nothing wrong with them. They're probably just stinking cute. They maybe have ordered too many, and they just need to get rid of them before the next batch comes in. But those are limited edition. You're never going to get them again once that that fabric line is gone. And so that's kind of a cool thing too, because you can definitely use that to your advantage and say, these are, you know, these are one of a kind, guys. You're not gonna be able to get this fabric for very long. So get them while they're hot. Get this quilt while it's hot. But yeah, I just love strip quilting though. It's kind of one of my favorites. And you can definitely start and stop these things and walk away, do 15 minutes of sewing, 10 minutes of sewing for those of you that have real small children. And you get with small, tiny windows, these are perfect for that. Because you can start and stop and walk away so easily and not have a mess. And it's a little harder to line things up for long ways once I've got one or two sewn together, just because I've got this going on right here. This extra kind of wants to do that because I haven't ironed it. So I'll spend some time just stopping quite a bit and making sure everything's good and lined up. Oh my gosh, Liz, you need to go to bed. Quit dreaming about sleep and go dream for real, girl. You got to have some sleep. You reminded me of college. I remember I had to stay up for school. I had a project. It was my senior year, and I had like 2 or 3 projects due, and that's pretty typical. My senior projects due. I think I stayed up for 2 full days, 48 hours. And on top of that, I had to drive from where I was living to school, which was 45 miles away, and then drive back home on 48 hours straight of no sleep. When I finally got home after everything was done and the semester was over, I was going to graduate, it was all finished, and I could lay down and go to sleep, I was so worked up from being up that long. It wasn't on caffeine. It was just from, I cannot sleep. I can't take the luxury of it. I can't do it. I've got to drive. I've got to do this. I've got to do everything. So that responsible, and I'm sure medical students go through this too, that responsible reaction that when I laid down, I could not go to sleep for like hours and hours. I laid there, and I was like, come on, you can go to sleep. And it was almost painful because I couldn't go to sleep. And I finally went to sleep. And I think I slept for like a full day and didn't even realize it. But man, I couldn't believe how frustrated I was. I was like, now I can go to sleep, and I can't sleep. And I don't ever have that problem. No, that's okay, Shayna. I didn't expect anybody to really totally keep up with me, but I just wanted to make sure if you were doing some things and you got to a spot and you needed some help, that I was moving slow enough that we can catch that. So no, I totally don't know how well these are going to work as a complete sew along versus you guys do what you can do and then do the rest off camera. And then we come back together the next time and we move on to the next step. So that's really kind of what I see these being as well. And quilting is going to be one of those things where there's going to be so many different variables going on. And you're going to notice with these jelly rolls, I want to show you guys, and it just depends upon your fabrics. And you're probably going to notice this on some of your fabrics too. Some of your white edges, and this is all from the same company, some of your white edges are going to be wider than others. And so when you do the strip, you get to the other end, this could happen. Okay, that's very normal. Don't worry if that happened. You didn't do anything wrong. Okay, that is a lot of variables in the printing of the fabric as well. So realize that once you get everything pulled together, then we start making some actual measurement cuts. Right now, we're just creating fabric. Okay, so I could go on and keep adding to this, or I can stop here, go iron, start cutting if I want to cut certain squares or rectangle shapes or longer, shorter pieces. What this one did, this was purely made out of a combination of scraps and yardage. Okay, so when I did this one, I had bits and pieces of everything. And this is like that purple one, just not quite as far along in the game. So I chose a solid piece, and that's always the same size. But you'll notice the rest of these are all varying in their size. So this is how you can do it, even though if you want to do a strip, you don't have to put this little square there. You can just take like 2 pieces, sew them together to make a long strip if you don't have enough yardage and you want to use up your scraps. So this is where it gets to be fun too, because you can choose a whole bunch and keep your colors the same. You don't have to worry about your fabrics as long as you're working in color families. So say you choose, like this one is pinks and greens and whites. And I think yellows was one of them. So I try to keep it to 2 to 4 colors, and you choose that. And then you go through your scrap bin and you start pulling out all your scraps that fit in that color variation. And then you go iron them really good. And then you start cutting your pieces that are, you know, however wide you're going to do them. So I think these ended up being 3 inches. These were 2.5 inch strips. So I cut a whole bunch of 2.5 inch strips, and then I just put them together in a stack, and several different stacks, and just randomly grabbed from stacks. So they were super random, super random, and created my strips. Then I took them over to my flannel, and that's where I started laying everything out. And when you start laying things out, you're going to notice you're going to have a line that possibly several of your strips are the same. Okay, so then instead of your line being here all the way down, if that's not what you want it to be real random, take that strip and shift it or flip it and see if that seam will end up maybe over here. And then you put your next one underneath, and then you lay them all out, and then you step back and make sure you don't want to shift a few around, because for some reason, maybe you get when you get further back, you're going to notice, oh, everything looks really great, but then right here, everything gets really blah. So you want to shift it up, or it's really random in colors, and then all of a sudden everything became the same hue down here, and so it just really doesn't make any sense. That's where these flannel boards, flannels on the wall, are so invaluable. But yeah, don't think you can't use just a mishmash of your scraps and do scrap busting quilts, because that's what this is, and these turn out so pretty. And then they'll be so pretty. I'm like, I want to do another one like that, and I don't have any more fabric to do another one like that. So. And I'm just ironing this real quick. Sorry, guys. Should have said that. Oh, you guys, I'm a knitter. Totally. They think, oh, well, you can just make that for me. Or why don't you just sell that? You know, you make a sweater or you make some socks. Oh, you could sell those. And you're looking at them going, do you realize I'd have to charge $1,000 for these? And they're looking at you like, what are you talking about? Well, you know, there's my time. You can't afford that. People wouldn't pay $1,000 for a pair of socks, guys, because that's pretty much what it's worth. You know, yeah, totally, guys. Totally. All right, so I was just kind of trying to look at my pieces that I've got here because I have got so many. All right, I'm going to show you guys a little bit what I was talking about for squares. So let me grab a couple of these squares and put them together. I want to make sure I piece them right so that I can use them. I just don't want to throw some together and then just wished I hadn't done that. So let me lay a couple out here and make sure I like what I'm seeing first. And most of the time, if you're working with a charm pack, you're going to like what you see no matter what you put together because they've already done the color work for you because all the colors are of the same hues and variations because it is that color, that fabric line. And that's what that fabric line is put together for, complementary pieces and stuff. So, yeah. All right, I'm going to start with that one at least. All right, so we're going to do, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about when we go to piece squares. Now on these squares, I'm going to take just a little bit bigger of a seam. Okay. So I'm going to run right at the edge of my foot on these. I hardly ever go off of the lines on my plate on my sewing machine. I just have such a hard time keeping track of where those are. So if you are good at doing that, go right ahead. If that helps you, I just know it doesn't work well for me. Now this is where chain piecing comes in. Okay, so you saw that I sewed through this one. I did not pick that up and I did not do anything but just stop sewing, okay? So the next two that I put together, and I'm sure some of you have seen this, but for those of you who have not, then what I do is say my next one, I've already got my next ones put together, or if I haven't, then I just go get my next ones. And I put them together and make sure everything's lined up. So make sure your squares, when you line your squares, you don't just line up the side here. You're lining up the top as well. And then that way you know everything is nice and square. Then I just lay it under there and just keep sewing. I have not stopped. I have not cut any thread or anything. I just keep right on going. And you just keep doing that and keep doing that and keep doing that. And then you end up with this long chain. You'll have long chain like that. So you have 3, 4, 5 or whatever. And then you just go back. You cut them. Biggest time saver when it comes to piecing. And then you can just go over and press your seams. Now on these, you have to stop and press because it does matter. I'm not going to go sew another one together onto this without this being pressed open. And it's because I have to line everything up really nice when it comes to these blocks. And so I will stop and press. So if you chain piece a whole bunch of them together, and then you press them all open at the same time, then you can go back and start putting your next ones on, or you can start piecing them together however you want. Okay, so if you're going to do your squares, so I've got my 2 squares here and my 2 squares here, okay? I'm going to use pins on this one for putting these together. So let me empty off my workspace here. Okay, so you can see what I'm doing here. All right, so we've got this piece here, and then I'm going to decide, how do I want to piece it together? Do I want it like that? Do I want it like that? I think we're going to go like that. So I'm going to lay my seams together. So I've got this seam and that seam, and you just place one on top of the other so that they match up totally. So you can see your open press seam here and your open press seam there. Now I'm going to put a pin there because you don't want those to move as much as possible. Are they going to move a little bit? Probably. I'm still trying to get them. And the way I do it is like that. So I've pinned across my seam like that. Now I'm also going to probably, I want to make sure it matches all the way. This is the one thing where you really need to line up the whole thing, not just those two seams. That's where things start getting off, is when you're losing your complete squareness. Now you've already got, you know, your fabric's not going to be 100% perfect, but do the best you can. And I'm going to probably pin one more time a little bit further down, just so I know it stays. Okay. Now I'm going to go back and we're going to stitch that together again, and we'll see how well I did. And this is where you got to remember what size of seam you're taking. And always make sure, if you have to pin all these all the way, don't be hard on yourself. Whatever works for you. Okay. So let's see how I did. And I cut my tails a little bit. I don't cut them super close. I always leave a little bit of my tail. And I just, since I'm not back stitching, it just kind of helps things from not coming apart so easily. Okay, not too bad. I mean, it's really hard, and you're going to get some that are dead on, and you're going to get some that just, come on, focus for me, that just don't quite line up perfectly. It happens to all of us. So you can see, there we go. You can see how it's off just a little bit, but it's not bad. It's not bad at all. You don't, you know, you want to try and get as close as you can. Oh, good, Sandy. Yeah, you guys should not be scared of these. These are fun. This is fun. You can even use, if you're looking for fabrics, you can use old shirts. You can use anything that's cotton. So be really creative. I mean, if you are running short of fabric and you know you've got some things you're going to give away as clothes or whatever, and you know the cotton is cotton and it's a good cotton, use it. Or if it's cotton poly, use it. Okay, so then I went back and I ironed again. So now it's completely flat, and I have a 4-block piece right now. So I'm probably, since I did this, I could add 2 more up the top, 2 more on the side, and keep building this. Or I can just use these as blocks of 4 with my strips. So if I wanted to do that, I'm just going to grab this again. You guys are going to be tired of seeing this. And mind you, this does not match. It's just purely for visual. So this would match up if I had just 1 less strip, okay? So to kind of show you guys what I was talking about. So you want to incorporate the 2. So I've got blocks, and then I've got this strip right here that I want to put together. And then you could put 4 blocks on this side. Or you could do it just like this and let it be like that. See how you can just do all these variations. So if you want to try a whole bunch of different things on your top, just go for it. Go try all the different techniques, or just stick to one, whichever you feel comfortable with. But I just want you guys to play with this top and have a really good time with it. How long are, I guess, are you asking how long are the strips? The strips, if you're going to cut them, will be the width of your fabric. So when you get your fabric, you bring your fabric home, and it'll come like this. Let me play up a little bit here. It comes like this. And so you've got your salvage edge, and then you've got your folded edge over on this side. Okay. And so you're going to cut, obviously this would have to be ironed, but you're going to cut from the folded edge to the salvage edge, however wide you're going. So 1.5 inches, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, whatever. And you'll cut your strips that way. If you're just going to use pieces and you're going to kill your stash, maybe as long as you make them. So yeah, or you can take these, like you cut these, and then you can sew 2 of them together to make them really long if you want. So the length doesn't really matter. You just have to decide, what are you trying to do? Are you just going to make a fun quilt? Are you going to actually do something that you want it to be certain size, like you want it to be a throw or a toddler quilt or a twin size? I wouldn't go, I would say if you guys have not quilted before, I wouldn't even do a twin yet. I would do a throw or a toddler quilt to start, or even a doll size quilt. I just want you guys to get the feel for it, because when they start getting to the twin and double, and even going from the double to a queen king, that's a whole nother feat of trying to just manage all that material. So I want you guys to stay on a smaller scale until you get really comfortable with the technique and can kind of understand what fabric wrangling really is when it comes to doing that kind of stuff. And if you don't know sizes, just go Google it. Google out on the web, quilt sizes, and you'll get a lot of charts that'll give you all of them. They'll give you, your throw, your baby, your twin, your double, your queen, your king. They'll give you a California king. They'll give you, that way you have final measurements. And those aren't just set in stone either. That's what that website says. You go to another website and they're going to be a couple inches different one way or another. Just pick one. It really doesn't matter. Hey, Lakeisha. How would I fix that? I missed your comment, Adriana. I'm sorry. How would I fix that? Thanks, Lakeisha. Oh, thanks, Anna. Hey, Stacy. Oh, Dolphy, no. It's fine. It's fine to use Joann's fabrics. It's fine to use any fabric, really. I would just stay in a cotton blend for now. You can make quilts out of knit fabrics. You can make them out of denim. You can make them out of anything. My mom had made me one when I was in high school to put in my car, because I grew up north. And so those of you that are from the north can really relate to this. But in the wintertime, you always should carry a heavy quilt in your car, just in case you get stranded and it's super cold. For that time that you either didn't realize it was icy and you ended up off the road, or your battery died and you're waiting for people to get there and it's actually life-threatening cold. So she made me a super heavy quilt, and she made it out of corduroys and denims and even some upholstery fabrics, because it wasn't meant to be soft. It was meant to be warm. And she did like 3 or 4 layers of that. That thing probably weighed, I swear, 20, 30 pounds. It was crazy. But that quilt is still around today. It lasts because it is such a heavy quilt. So I'm just saying, you can make stuff out. You can make your quilts out of anything. You just have to be cognizant of the weight of thread you're using. Can your machine handle it? Do you have the right needle? That kind of stuff. So, and then you really learn about fabric wrangling when they get real heavy like that. But no, you can do it, but I wouldn't worry about Joann fabrics. They're fine. They're fine. Yeah, I know. California King, they do. I was just like, whoa. I actually made a king size quilt for my girlfriend for one of her t-shirts that I was telling you about earlier. Oh, baby. That was heavy. And I'm only 5'4". And I'm trying to do some fabric wrangling on this king size quilt that is just crazy big. Oh my gosh. That was a workout in its own, trying to do that. Adriana, I didn't know your question and I still haven't seen it. Let me see. Unless that wasn't one for me. And that's fine. I just want to make sure that if you ask me something, if it was something for me, please repeat it because I don't see it. So, questions. I kind of tried to move through things. I hope I touched on it good enough for you guys. Another question, I know people are going to say wash or not wash, pre-wash or not pre-wash. It doesn't matter. Just know if you do one, you do it all. You don't just pre-wash some and not others. So I know that's always a big, oh, don't do that. No. I was brought up on the you pre-wash fabric. You get the sizing out of it. It comes kind of with a funky smell from the manufacturer. They're not clean. They're dirty. You guys don't realize that. Those fabrics are dirty. And because they come from a manufacturing environment. And then you also want to make sure that they were pre-shrunk. That's why we washed ours. That's why I was brought up with the you wash fabric before you use it kind of thing. Just to make sure if anything's going to bleed, it bled. And that way, you know, you get your quilt together, you spend all this time, and then all of a sudden it bleeds. And you could have stopped it. So there's lots of reasons. Lots of reasons why I pre-wash fabric for even my kids' clothes, because I don't want it to bleed. I don't want them to get this beautiful light colored thing that I applicate something darker on, and then all of a sudden that darker piece bled and they can't get it out and I have a bad review. So that's my personal opinion just on that. Everybody, you just do what you're comfortable with. I'm not saying you have to or don't have to. So just giving you my opinion why I do it. Oh, that's how. I don't really know how to get them to 100% line up any more than what I just did right there. I've been doing this for so long. And 99% of the time, that's as close as I can get. And it's okay. Really. You can't tell. That there are ways where I was taught when you put these together, you put these seams together, if you're not sure if they're 100% where they're supposed to be, after you've laid them on top of each other, you take a pin and you put the pin not through the fabric, but you're separating the stitches a little bit. So you're pulling it apart just a little bit carefully, and you put it through the space between the stitches on both of them, and you line it up that way as well. Now that's time consuming, but that is the way I was taught to do it. And see, like on this side, I pushed it through and it doesn't match up. So you can do that. Pretty time consuming to do that. But when you're first starting, if you want to try it once or twice just to see, does it work, or are you that far off or whatever? Yeah, that's nice, a nice little trick. But other than that, I'm a fan of not dealing with perfection like that. I like the abstract already anyways. That's kind of always been my design go-to, I guess I should say. So whenever I design anything, I'm more of an abstract, minimalist, modern kind of contemporary layout. So that means things don't always line up. And I'm not doing that just because of that, but also there's other reasons why. So I just deal with it. It just is what it is. If it really bothers you, just keep practicing. That's all you can do is just keep practicing. But realize when you're sewing, your fabric does move just a little bit with your machine. So the foot feed's going over it, and then your foot feed underneath. I mean, your foot on the top and your foot feed underneath is going. And that tends to shift your fabric just a touch. You can't control that 100%. You just can't. Oh, you bet, Juana. Yeah, this is going to be an ongoing thing. This isn't just we're going to do this and be done kind of thing. This is going to be a whole nother teaching thread for you guys. It's one I've kind of been wanting to do, and then I had a couple of requests, and I was like, okay, let's just do it. I don't know why I'm waiting. Let's just do it. So yeah. Yeah. Oh, cool. Good. Thanks, Shayna. Yeah, I like that. I like the poll there. And it might be one of those where you don't feel like doing it now, but maybe in a year you will. And that's cool too. I know there's times when we're doing things, we're like, here's my case in point. I always said, I'm never going to learn how to spin. Now, I don't have time. It's just not something that totally interests me. And for those of you that aren't real sure, I'm not talking about spinning as in exercise. I'm talking about spinning as in taking raw fiber and turning it into yarn. I'm like, I already got enough to do. Nope. Plus on top of it, that's not my hot button. That went by the wayside about 5 years ago. And all of a sudden I was like, that really looks fun. I now own 4 wheels and it's one of my biggest passions. So yeah, it may not be you right now, but if in a year or 2 or 5, these videos will still be here for you. So that's all cool. Or maybe you know somebody who's learning or wants to learn. You got a video to say, hey, go watch this one, or, they're doing this or that. So it's always fun. Or you just come on and want to chat. That's always good too. I love the socialness of all of our lives. Really is so nice. Yeah, abstract rules, Adriana. Abstract, for those of you that haven't thought of it this way, it is also a nice way to hide your learning how to do something. Because if you're doing something in the abstract, it doesn't show mistakes. Just say it. Oh, it's not going to be a disaster, Jacqueline. You're going to be fine. You're going to be absolutely fine. Now, if you guys do, you start doing these and you post little things to Instagram and that, make sure you tag me. I want to see. I want to see what you guys are doing. Please tag me. I want to see it, because I know some of you aren't on Discord. So I know a lot of ladies that are will post what they're doing on Discord and show me there. But if you're not, yeah. Oh, go ahead and just dance. How fun. Go enjoy your little one. Yeah, we can catch up later. Your little one's only little for so long. Go have fun. I'll talk to you later, sweetie. So yeah, any questions though? Did I say something that didn't make sense? Something that I breezed by that all of a sudden we all went squirrel, and then now you're thinking about it and we need to go back for a second? You get overwhelmed with fabric choices. Okay, Sarah. So start with colors. Don't do fabrics, do colors. So do like always when you guys are choosing for colors or something, always work in the odds. Odds are very pleasing to the eye. Evens, your eye is not as satisfied. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. Your eye loves the abstract. Your eye loves to be asymmetrical. And a lot of people don't know that. Symmetry, some people are not comfortable if things aren't symmetrical. That's okay. But majority of the people will gravitate to asymmetry. And so the easiest way to create a balancing color combination is to always choose odd numbers of colors. So Sarah, say you wanted to choose like blue, red, and white. Okay, you're going to do a 4th of July quilt. There's 3. Or you want to do orange, brown, and yellow. There's 3. So choose 3 colors. Just off the top of your head, what are the 3 colors I would really like together on a quilt? So baby pink, baby blue, baby lavender, you know, those kinds of things. And then go choose your fabrics. So that way it weeds out a lot of the fabrics, because you're like, oh, I really like that, but that doesn't have one of those 3 colors in it, or it is not enough of one of those 3 colors in it for me to consider it for this quilt. Out. And then you see one that has a majority of one or all of those colors in it in. And then all of a sudden you've got all these fabrics. Well, that's okay, because you can still use all those fabrics because they have those 3 colors as their main substance, and they're going to work together. Now make sure that, you know, if you're choosing purples, that your purples all work together, because you're going to have red purples, you're going to have blue purples, you're going to have warm purples and cool purples. Make sure your purples are together, and the same with your reds and your oranges and your pinks and all that. So just make sure you're in the same tonal value. So everything's like a medium or a light. And then that doesn't necessarily 100% play out all the time, but I'm just saying to keep it easy if you're having a hard time choosing fabrics until you've done a few. And then you can start stepping outside and throwing in a few more things. But just to keep it simple, to give yourself a really easy way to choose, because I know choosing fabrics can be difficult for some people. And then also what I do is, if you want to keep it to a minimum, then again, 3 fabrics, 3 colors. So you just choose 3 colors and maybe 3 of each of those colors, or just 3 fabrics that have all of those 3 colors in it, or they are one of those colors. So you have one that's blue, one that's red, one that's white, and that's it. And then as you get a little more comfortable with choosing and working with things, and you start realizing how to put things together and how things play together, then that starts becoming a little bit easier to bring other things in. So just keep it simple at the beginning when if you're having problems with that. Does that help, Sarah? I think you guys are going to be really shocked at how well you do, and I don't want you to be hard on yourself. All you have to do is make sure you keep your seam allowances the very same. So if you start with a quarter, stay with a quarter. If you start with a half, stay with half. And it kind of sounds like that's a duh thought, but I'm going to tell you, I don't know how many times I've started with 1 and I've changed it accidentally by adding 1/8 of an inch because I changed where I was looking on my machine. So that's why I keep bringing this up. So that's pretty much the hard and fast rule you really need to stay with, is keep your seam allowances the same all the way through. The rest, it's up to you. It's up to you what you want to do. Everything is up to you on that one. Hi, Wendy. Awesome. Puff quilt. All right. I'm not going to recommend a puff quilt if you've never done a quilt before. I want you to start with kind of what we're doing here. And then after you've done, and I'm not telling you to make a big one, okay? I just want you to start with what we're doing here and do something really small, even a doll quilt. And then learn how things go together. Then you can go do a puff quilt. I'm not saying you can't do one now. I'm just saying I would do one of these, like do one of these tops or one of these little ones, or even make it into a pillow or something. Do a couple of those before you attempt a puff quilt. And then do the puff quilt into a pillow first, so you get the technique and you understand how to do those, and then work into a bigger project, okay? So I just want you to be successful and not be frustrated and give up, and find out that really your frustration was something very easy we could have worked through. So, but yeah, puff quilts, I have not been attracted to puff quilts, so I've never made one. I could look at the instructions, though. I know I have seen the instructions on how they're done. They're just a little fiddlier. That's about it. And you'll be okay. But I really just want you to have a good feel for how quilts go together first, so that you don't get frustrated, because I don't want you to be frustrated. I've seen a lot of puff quilts out there. They are kind of the thing right now. Yeah, Zoa, those doll quilts are very satisfying. It's because you get done real quick and you see results real fast. The bigger the quilt, the longer it takes to see your results, longer it takes to get satisfaction. I agree with you there. So yeah, that's another reason why I want you guys to stay small. Yeah, you can take these. When I said that, make these into pillow tops too. Yep. I didn't even think about that until it came out, and I was like, duh. You don't have to do a doll quilt. You can just make a pillow top. And just simple back on it, and we can go over how to do those too if you guys have some of you are making pillow tops and you just want to stuff a pillow in it to put on your bed or on a chair or something, or outside, or wherever you're sitting. Yeah, and that's very common, Zoa. That is, a lot of people have that thought. You're not alone on that one. For those of you that have the embroidery machines too, we do have edge-to-edge quilting files we can buy. So if you don't want to send it to somebody and it's small enough that you feel comfortable doing it on your machine, because especially the flatbeds, you want to keep them smaller if you're going to do it on a single needle flatbed, because of the weight, again, the quilt wrangling that goes on. It's probably not going to quilt as easily with an edge to edge if you're getting into something that's, probably double the queen size. Even twin could be a little tricky, but depending upon how big your sewing field is, and you would have to lay out some area off to the left of your machine to lay that quilt so the quilt doesn't drape. And I'm sure you would figure that out once you start putting it on there and realize that that weight is going to pull on your mechanism that moves. But that's a great option, and I'm going to use that probably on all my baby quilts. I do a lot of straight line quilting just because I deal with the abstract a lot, and that just really sets up really nice to set those quilts off. And I'm not necessarily using the quilting as the showpiece. I want the fabric and the quilt itself to be the showpiece. So the straight line quilting does the purpose of holding it all together and makes it very, very usable and washable. And then it doesn't, have that, your eye wants to go to that. It looks at the fabrics and the design. Now, some quilts, if you do a lot of plain fabrics and you want to have a real pretty quilted design on that, then that's where those edge to edge quilting ones would come in really nice if you want to do it and not send it out to somebody. I've done some free motion, Zoa. It's not my thing. It's a combination, and it takes a lot of practice. It's a combination of getting your hand motion moving at the same speed that your foot is pushing on the foot feed. So if you, and this is a lot like spinning, so that's why I'm going to liken this to it. It's a lot like spinning, where you start concentrating on your hands and all of a sudden your feet start going faster and faster and faster and faster, and then you have a mess because your hands aren't keeping up. Well, the same thing's going to happen on a free motion. You got to be thinking about your hands and your foot at the same time. And until you can get your brain trained to do that, it's really, your stitches are all over the place, the length, and I mean the width of your stitches. So you'll have some that are really tight and some that are really far away. And then your machine speed's going to go up, down, up, down, up, down. So that's just what free motion is. And then once you've done it a few times, you start getting a rhythm, and then it goes easier. So I just don't have the patience right now to stay with it long enough to get the rhythm going. I have so many other things I want to do. So that's where I'm kind of like you. I would send it out to somebody to do it, or I would do the edge to edge quilting on my machine so that I can go on and do what I prefer to do, which is the piecing. So yeah, hey, Angela. Hey. Put on the inside of the quilt. Okay, there's several things you can do for that. You can go buy quilt batting, and the quilt batting I would use, you can buy either by the yard or you can buy prepackaged. And it looks, there's several different kinds, but it'll look like this, okay? And it's thinner, and it's called quilt batting. Now you're going to also see some that is made out of polyester and it's a little bit airier. I wouldn't use that. You want like this. Now, something I have done also is I have used fleece on the inside, a cheaper fleece, and it works really well as well. Now, let's see what I got a piece. I've used this one on a bigger quilt. I wouldn't use it on a tiny one, but I used this actually for my friend's t-shirt quilt because she wanted it super heavy. So I went after this, and see how much thicker it is? And most fleece you can get in different varying thicknesses. I wouldn't go quite this thick, but you can use a fleece, and I've used it tons and it works beautifully. So just get a lighter weight fleece, you know, when they have those fleece sales after Christmas, and you can pick them up, and they're not necessarily the best quality that you would want to make maybe outerwear out of, or it's meant for something to be super lightweight. That's perfect for inside. And I would go buy bolts of it when I could get it for like $1, $2 a yard, and I would go buy like 5 bolts of it, and I would have quilt batting like crazy. So you can do both. And we'll start going over some of that either in the next one or after. We'll probably touch on it for sure in the next one. I want to see who's quilting, where they're at, if they're having problems, if we need to go over anything to get you past that problem or whatever. Also know you can always message me. You find me on Instagram or on Facebook. Scandeez is on both. And I'm going to start also, I don't know why I had this dumb moment, but Lauren, thank you for waking me up, and I finally figured it out. But I was trying to figure, where can I post these live announcements, not only for quilt alongs, but the sew alongs that have the material list for you guys that aren't on Discord, and I just hadn't come up with where. Duh, my Facebook page. Hello, everybody can get to that. So I'm going to definitely be posting my sew alongs and the material list on my Facebook page as well. So you guys can always bop over there and see if you want the material list or if you've forgotten or something. And then, Sarah, you can back your quilt with a lot of different things. You can do a solid cotton. You can do a small print cotton. You can piece together a back with bigger pieces and just kind of randomly, abstractly put them together. You can use minky. You can use, what else have I used? I've used fleece. So, you know, it really just depends on what you're looking for. For me, if I want it to be super soft, obviously I'm going to use the fleece or the minky, but I love a nice cotton back once in a while too. And to cuddle up in those isn't bad either. It's different than a minky, but it feels really good. And you can get really creative with your backs. You can also buy cotton in extra wide for quilt backing. I think it's 110 inches wide, but they have, all you have to do is Google extra wide cotton fabric by the yard or quilt back fabric by the yard, and they do sell it. No, your medium weight interfacing will not come off. You want that to permanently stay with your fabrics because you're using it for a reason. You're using it to stabilize something. So we're not using it on these. We use it on t-shirt quilts and that's to stabilize that knit fabric. So if you're doing a knit quilt, you may have to stabilize some of your knits if you're using different weights, but that's a whole nother conversation, and that's a whole nother level. So let's not go to knits yet, please, girls. Stay with your cottons until I get you to where you feel comfortable. Yes. Okay. That's good to know, Zoe. Yeah. I may have to talk to you about that because I don't know if I know for sure how to do that. Oh, I do put it in the description of my scheduled live, Shayna. It's just, I think some people are having a hard time finding the material list in there, so I'm trying to put it somewhere else as well. Oh, that's cute, Angeline. I'm glad you stopped in to say hi. Hey, we've got to say hi to our peeps wherever we're at. It all works nowadays. I just love that we have this technology that it doesn't, we're not having to be in a rush to get home because we wanted to say hi to somebody or we wanted to catch something. We're able to do it and still have our lives go on. It's not as hectic that way. So, and we get to keep in touch a whole lot better. Yes, I will put a link to my Facebook page on this in the description after we get done with this. I'll go grab that link. Yeah, I can do that, Wanna. Sarah, we can help you with that. You can always FaceTime or something if you want some help while you're shopping. Absolutely. No, that's definitely something we can do. Just let me know. Or you can send me pictures too and say, I like these. Do you like these? What do you, so long as I know what you're trying to do. Yeah, no, I can help you with that. Girl, I think you're going to find out you're better at it than you realize. I'm sure. I think you just need somebody to help you, tell you that, yep, you're on the right road there. Any other questions, guys? I'm trying to, again, I don't think this is going to stay on Saturdays. It may move a little bit from here and there, depending. This one may have to be fluid. Sunday nights are Sunday nights. The quilt longs will never be on the Sunday night lives. Those are always going to be what Amber and I come up with, and then just my work with me's every other week. Now, that doesn't mean we can't talk about it on my work with me's. So if you guys have questions on the off Sundays when we're not making, whatever sew along is at that time, absolutely, we can talk about it on the work with me's. Not a problem. Don't feel like you can't bring it up. But I think the quilt alongs, I might land on a final day. But for right now, I think they might be a little fluid. The next one will probably still be Saturday. Not sure they're going to be weekly. We might have a couple that are weekly and then a couple that are bi-weekly. This one, I think I want to give you time to go find your fabrics. I want to give you time to digest everything, to get everything figured out. I want you to start cutting and start sewing. And so by doing that, I'm going to give you guys 2 weeks before we get to the next one. So yeah, that's going to be 2 weeks from now is, should have looked at my calendar. And I just want to make sure we're not falling on a weird weekend. It is Memorial Weekend. It is what it is. Yeah. Hey, Puha. So yeah, it'll probably be 2 weeks from this Saturday. We'll do another Saturday again, and I'll probably do about 12:30. I'll post it, but it'll probably be 12:30 again because that worked for me really good. And I think it seems to be working for you guys time-wise. I mean, time is time. There just is no perfect one for everybody. And then after that one, we'll look and see where you guys are at on whether we wait another 2 weeks or we go a week, and whether we stay on a Saturday or whether I move it. Like I said, next month is going to be a little iffy until I get off the road. So Delphi, I want you to actually start sewing for the next one, before the next one. The size of squares is up to you. Obviously, the bigger squares are easier. So these that I had were cut 5" by 5". And then they'll sew down to be about 4.5 by 4.5. Or 4.25 and 4.25, depending upon the size, you know. So anywhere between 4 to 4.5 is going to be your finished square. So I want you to go ahead and cut them, and I want you to start sewing them before next time, because I want to be able to address any issues you're having with cutting and sewing next time. So I want you to go ahead and already try it. I want you to try, if you want to, I want you to try a couple of strips too. You don't have to do a lot. If you feel like it's not working for me, or all of a sudden you're like, whoa, this is great, I'm going to do both, you know, I want you guys to try both. And then we can go over what issues you may be having, or you might already be thinking out of the box and designing way down the road. Who knows? You're going to be surprised while you're sewing this stuff together. Your brain's just going to start thinking of all kinds of things and going places where you're like, I can do this and I can do that. Or once I show you one little trick, your brain's going to take off with it. So, and you can do that, Sarah. You can go get one of these pre-cuts. Yeah, you can easily go grab the jelly roll and the charm packs. And then there also is some, I think, that are rectangles. And I know they are. I just can't remember what they're called. They've got like 5 or 6 different kinds. If you go to the quilt stores, they've got them all. And you can just have a good time. And yeah, if you want to start with the pre-cuts, absolutely. If that helps you with choosing a fabrics and also knowing everything's cut good and you just want to concentrate on the sewing, nothing wrong with it. Go for it. Yeah, Delphi, I'm on Instagram, and that is in my description there. And you can also get me through Etsy. That's in the description as well. You can message me through either one of those. Oh, that's okay, Wendy. I know that's the good thing, is if you come in the middle, you can always go back and redo. You bet. How much fabric do you need? It depends upon the size. So if you're going to do like a baby quilt or a throw, you'd probably want, I would get like 2 of these or 1 of these and a jelly roll. And I think you'd probably have enough to make a throw. It may not be super big. And then if you have like some plain fabric laying around that you want to add into it, if you feel like it's not quite the size that you want, you can do that as well. Or you can always run out and grab another one if you're getting to the point where you're like, oh man, this really isn't as big as I was hoping. You know, you can always do that too. But grab one of these and grab a jelly roll. Or if you just want to do squares or just do strips, then just do 2 of each. But yeah, that would work for you. And then, like I said, once you get going, if you realize you want to do more, and see if you can't get like maybe 2, like a different one. Like say you get one in one line and one in another, but yet the colors are all the same. Then that way, if you decided you wanted to add on and you couldn't get another one, you would at least have already changed it up. But I'm just throwing some things out there. You can grab a couple of the same one too. I'm not saying you can't. So how many layers of strips should we start with? As many, you know, I would, this one has, this has 27 rows, 2.5 inches. And it is, let me measure it for you. It's about 51 inches long. So then you would just cut them the width of the fabric. So obviously this isn't the width. This is only like 15.5 inches wide. So the width of the fabric, so if you wanted to do 27 2.5 inch strips by the width, which would be about, by the time you get done cutting everything up, it'd be probably 40 inches once it's sewn and everything. And so then this would probably end up being about 48, 49 by about 40 if you did that. So does that help you out a little bit? What is a jelly roll? A jelly roll is the 1.5 inch strips that are already pre-cut that you can go buy at the fabric store. And they come literally rolled up. And they're in a roll like this. And so all of them are all rolled together, and it's the fabric line that they came out with. So like this one is Ready, Set, Snow. So this one's a Christmas theme, and it's all the fabrics that came out in this line. And if you guys aren't familiar, when fabrics come out from the designers, they don't just design one, they design a whole line. And so you've got coordinating fabrics that go with. And so this one, and that one's all messed up. Let me just take this one off now. I was leaving this together so you guys could see what it looked like. But you have the coordinating fabrics that they put to go with the print fabrics as well. So these are meant for quilts. And so this line was meant, you can use it for things other than quilts, but this was meant for quilts. And she designed all of this to be quilt. And that's what the jelly roll will be, just strips of these instead of squares. So look at all of these that are in there. So imagine a 1.5 inch strip of each one of these, and then they roll them together in this big roll, and it comes like this. And then when you take, there's usually a ribbon wrapped around it. So when you take the ribbon off, then it all comes apart, and you just pull the strips out, and they're like this. And that's what this all came from. Was from a jelly roll. And so this was all put together in a big roll. No, they do not have to be cut with pinking shears. They just did that. That's what they do. And I think it's because when they send them out and they're handled so much by people packaging, and then it goes over to the store and you unpack and then you put them out and then the customers look at it. If they didn't pink these edges just from all the wear and tear of everybody touching them, they'd be so frayed. So that's why these are pinked, but you don't have to pink them. No. Now I'm saying if you want to, you can, but no, you do not have to. And if you want to, you can also get your rotary cutter. You can buy a wheel, a pinking wheel. And so you can just pink that way too, if you choose you want to. So if you guys are going to cut the strips, I'd probably go with the 2.5 inch or wider, just if you've never done a strip quilt. It's just a little easier to handle, and you don't have as many to put together if you choose you want to do something like a throw. Not that this is bad at all. I love the look of these smaller ones. I'm just saying you're going to have a lot more sewing and piecing. So the wider your strips, the less piecing you have. So just kind of gauge your size too on the fact that, you know, your satisfaction level. Are you going to get frustrated because you're not finishing quickly? So if so, I need to make my pieces wider so I do finish quickly and I see a finished result right away. And then after that, since I've seen it once, then maybe I can make them a little skinnier because I have already had that satisfaction level. At least that's for me. When I first start something, I sometimes have to have a satisfaction fairly quick. And then after that, then I fall in love and I've got, okay, this is cool. And I can back it down now and do the others. It's starting to rain. Getting outside. I was so productive yesterday, not here, but outside. I have a list of stuff. I'm sure we all do. But this list has been with me for like years just because I've been crazy busy and lazy. Let's be honest, lazy. And so I have to restain my deck out back. And this will be its fourth summer. So it's time. And if I don't do it this summer, then I'm going to probably have some damage to repair. So I was like, I have to. I should have did it last year, but I have to do it. I got it half stained yesterday. I feel so good. Now it's going to rain like the rest of the week. So it's probably going to be next weekend before I can finish. But that felt so good. And then I got, some yard work done. I just had some weed whacking I had to do that I was just, battery was dead, that kind of stuff. So every time you go to do it, your battery's dead. So I did that yesterday. And then I got something else done. I don't remember what else I did. And I was like, wow, I'm feeling like I'm starting to check a few things off the list. Let's hope we can keep this going. So I went out and bought more stain for other things I have to stain. And I'm like, oh, okay, set yourself up for success here. Let's go. You can do this. Yeah, I understand, Delphi. It's tough. Yeah, you just got to work with the space you've got at the time and try and really enjoy those moments you got. I used to sew just at my dining room table like the rest of you for the longest time. And I have to put everything away and pull it all out, put everything away and pull it all out. But that time that I was actually sewing was some of the best moments, still to this day, even though I didn't have like this big sewing room. Those are actually some of my more cherished moments of sewing. And I think it was because it was a little extra effort to be able to get to where I could just totally relax and have those moments of creativity where now, not that it's a bad thing, but I just walk down and start, And for me, it's great. But wow, I do remember just turning on the TV, watching the Olympics or whatever was on, and just totally my Saturday afternoon, that's all I did. It was so nice. You can wanna. I want you to be very, very comfortable with cutting with a rotary blade before you start multiple cutting, because multiple cutting, you can get wonky squares if you're not really, really careful and really exact. So if you're not used to cutting them like that, I want you to cut 2 at a time, which is that folded fabric. I want you to stay at 2 at a time for just a little bit. You can try 3 or 4. I wouldn't go beyond that. A lot of times what I will do, and this again, you got to be comfortable, but I will line things up to where I've got a piece of fabric here and then another one up above if my ruler is long enough. And I can get over it and keep my ruler from moving, because you've got to be over your ruler for your ruler not to slide. And if I can do that and I can stay over my rotary, that's where another reason where you kind of do this with your rotary is you're pushing when you need to be up and over it. And then you'll cut and you just be really careful and real exact and real slow. And you can try it, but just realize I don't do it because it's too easy for me to be off just about 1/8 or 1/16 of an inch, and over the amount of a quilt, it will show because it will magnify. Those of you that don't know, when you've got something that's off just a little bit, and then you keep adding other things that are off just a little bit when you're sewing, you keep adding and keep adding, it just keeps multiplying how far off. And then all of a sudden you have abstract and you didn't want abstract. So just realize that quilting is a slower process. It is not something that we should speed through. You will speed at times once you get used to it, but just take your time. That's when your best results are going to be. And I can guarantee those that have quilted for decades still take their time cutting, take their time sewing, take their time putting it together. It's never a speed. It can get expensive, Dolphy, if you're not careful. That's why I use fleece for the inside of my quilts, because I can save a lot. If you get that fleece it's on sale and you get it for a couple dollars a yard, batting can run you $10 a yard. You can easily save a lot of money there. You can pick up cotton on sale. Like I said, you can do stash busters for both the front and the back. There's lots of ways to save money and still be able to quilt. Making sure, I'm just reading back. Sorry guys, making sure I didn't miss something. I think I did. Okay. Any other questions, guys? This is good. This is good. Yeah, this is what I want to do every time. I want to make sure you guys fully understand. And I just want you to have fun with it. Don't be hard on yourself. Okay. You can still use something very lightweight. Nobody said you had to use fleece, and I know what you're saying. My grandmother was an avid quilter to the point where that's all she did was quilt. And she would sometimes get a sheet and put in the middle. And then that way it'd be a lightweight quilt. And you still had that sandwich, because you kind of need the sandwich just to really make everything quilt out nice and stay put. And plus, you can kind of see through them a little bit when you pick it up. Not that that's a big deal, but I don't know. It's just kind of, you almost want to have those 3 layers. It's just, it just plays nicer. It lays nicer. It sews easier. It's all that. So yeah, I would suggest a sheet. Yeah, that's a good one. I totally forgot she did that until you brought that up. My grandma used to do crazy quilts. And for those of you that aren't familiar with what a crazy quilt is, and I know there's all different kinds of crazy quilts out there, but the one that my grandma did is she would start with, pretend like this square is bigger and it's white or off-white or black or whatever. It's just some plain color. And then she would take scraps of materials in various sizes, and she'd start sewing them onto the background. I'll show you how to do this someday. But she'd start sewing them onto the background. So she would lay down a piece and it would cover, like, say you lay down your piece. I got to do it so you guys totally understand. So you lay down your piece, say like this, and it goes at an angle or whatever, a little bit of an angle. Well, then she would go in and you sew right here. And then you cut this end off because you're at the edge, and then you flip it, and that's already sewn. And then you finger press it. And then she would take the next piece and say it was, I gotta find a wonky piece. Let me find a wonky piece because it makes more sense. So say you've got some really funky shaped piece like this, okay? You've already got this one sewn on. And then you lay this one on that edge that's right there. And then you sew right there. And then you open it up. And then you finger press that again. So you see you've got an edge here. So then you take another piece and maybe you come and you flip it up so that when you're done and sew it down, it's like right there. And then she's got, it's just going all these different angles and sizes. they're the most beautiful things. And I've got one. She made each one of her grandkids one, and it's my treasured possession. And she made it in the colors that we liked. And she backed it in a sheet and put a sheet in the middle. And that's what made me think when you guys said it needs to be lighter weight, 'cause she did all of ours that way. And that way they weren't super heavy quilts, but they were, oh, they're beautiful. And then these blocks come out and they're like stained glass in a way where they're just all different funky shapes. And she would get the biggest kick out of the tiniest piece she could get of fabric into one of those. And every time I'd go to visit her, and she just lived next door to me, so I was over there all the time. She's like, come here, come here, come here, come here. Let me show you, let me show you. See that little tiny piece right there? That's my smallest one. She did this on a treadle machine, guys. She never had an electric machine. She had a treadle. And she would get the biggest giggle out of that. And I think she worked all day to get those pieces to where she could get the teeniest piece that once she cut it off, it still showed once she got everything completely laid down and sewed it together. And it might just be the size of the head of a pin, you know, like this. Might be that size right there. And that's all that shows. Oh my gosh. She was so fun. They are making a big comeback, and they're another good stash buster. I will have to find that quilt. I know it's upstairs. I've packed it away. And in all reality, I was a late in life child for my parents, and so I was a late in life grandchild on both sides. And Grandma never got to completely finish my quilt, as in putting it together. She finished the top. She had bought the sheet, and she gave it to me undone. She goes, I can't finish it, because she couldn't see anymore, and her hands were hurting too bad, so she couldn't do it anymore, but she finished it up for me. And she handed me everything. She goes, I know you know how to finish the quilt, and I know you will do it. Sorry. But oh, okay, Zoe, thanks for coming by. Yeah, I'm glad you stopped by. It was fun visiting with you. But yeah, I got to find that. It's stunning. Her quilts are just stunning. So any other questions, guys? I mean, we can go so many places with this. That's why I'm like, we're not going to just do this once and be done. We'll just keep going. And nothing else, you guys will just learn a whole lot about quilting, whether you want to follow along and do some of these or not. You know, you'd be surprised how even just some of these techniques fall into everyday sewing too. You know, it's crazy that a lot of what you learn, the exactness on the slowness and the cutting and the taking your time on this, you'll realize a lot of your problems in your everyday sewing is just because you're going too fast. And we all know that, but it really, really shows itself in quilting, because every time you go fast, I guarantee in quilting, you're going to be like, I shouldn't have done that. So it's a real good teacher of, what am I trying to say? Discipline. It's a good discipline. Oh man, those are so cool, Dolphy. Those are a labor of love as well. Absolutely. Yep. Yep, Jacqueline, totally. And that was so much her that, you know, it was actually she made it, and it was her wedding gift to each one of us grandkids. And then if you never got married, she just gave it to you when you kind of hit the age that you probably would have gotten married, you know, in your early 20s or whatever. Well, mine was actually my wedding gift. But a couple of my cousins never got married, so they got it just kind of when they were like 22-ish or so. Oh no, that's so sad. Yeah, but you still got pieces of it. You know, that's still good. If you can do anything with those pieces, even like I said, make them into a pillow, or something. Yeah, you'd be surprised what you can do. Oh, thanks, Shana. You know, a lot of these too, these things, when we make these quilts for people, we don't know that they're not going to become a memory quilt from us. I'm going to also go over labeling your quilt. I have a special label that I actually make and put on my quilts. And you guys can do anything you want for a label. But if you go look at some of the labels, like quilt labels that people make, you'd be surprised. They work those into the design of the back of their quilts, and that's what I do, is it becomes a piece of the back of the quilt. And so my label sometimes is like this big, and it looks so cool when you flip the quilt over and there's the label, and you can put whatever you want on the label. You know, if you're just making it to sell, then obviously it's all your business information. But if you're making it for somebody for a reason, I've seen these quilts where they have like this really beautiful poem that they put on it, or a blessing that they are passing on, or a prayer or something, or they'll put the person's name and date, and if it's like for their wedding or for their first baby or whatever. I mean, they make it really personal, and it is so pretty. And then it just becomes a part of the quilt, and it washes with the quilt, and they've always got that. And generations down the road, if they don't know what that quilt was for, you just told them with that quilt block what that was all about. And then they also got to know you just in that little snapshot if they don't know you. So it is so cool. Oh, good, Dolphy. That's good. Yeah, you were able to save it, at least enough of it to share it. That's so perfect. Yes, so very much, Sarah. So much. And you're doing that with designing of the fabrics too. That is the exact same thing, as we're getting a piece of you in that. And I think that's why we're all just latching onto that with you. It's so exciting to see that piece of you come out in each one of those pieces. Yes, it is. It's cool to be able to resurrect things. Yep, that's exactly it, Mary Beth. Yep. Yeah, it really, I always feel guilty if I run out of time, and it's my own fault if I run out of time, because I know from the minute I get this commission, because I get commissioned for quilts every now and then, and if I get this commission and I don't have a label when it comes time to put it on there, or I know an event's coming up, or a reason that I'm giving one as a gift, and I still haven't gotten it done, and then I get to it and I run out of time, I just want to kick myself so bad. So I'm like, that you knew that was coming. You have no reason that you didn't get this done, because I know just how important it can be to have that on there for generations down the road, not necessarily for the generation that knows you, because I've had too many quilts when we were going through things from my family, and we'd pull it open, just because I have so many people in my family that hand make things, and we'll hold things up and we're like, did they make this? Was this something that they bought somewhere? Did they get this at a thrift store? Is this even theirs? Is this important? Do we, and all those questions, and we're just so hesitant to even do anything with it. 'Cause we're like, if this is something they made, we want to hang on to this, and all of a sudden we've got this stack of stuff, and we're like, well, we can hang on to everything. So then we'll start just picking out pieces that we really, really like and hang on to those, and then never know the story behind them. So you hope that you're looking at that, seeing your relative, but you just never 100% know. Awesome, Juana. I hope you do give it a shot, because, yeah, not every craft is for everybody, but you don't know until you try. And it might be one of those that you just do periodically. It might be one of those that all of a sudden becomes that passion that you're like, wow, I never knew I was going to absolutely love this. So, yeah, I'm glad. All right, guys, I think we've gotten through questions. So You guys know how to get a hold of me. I will go copy my Facebook page onto the description in there. So if you guys want to even try and get a hold of me on my Facebook page, but it's just Scandeez, Scandeez on the Facebook. So you can catch me over there. Thank you, Shayna. Okay, 2 weeks from today. I know it's Memorial Weekend, but those of you that can join me, let's do it. I will post if the time changes. It's just because something came up that I was going to do for the weekend myself. So, but let's plan on that weekend for sure. And if nothing else, if I have to push it to Memorial Day, just because if something does come up on Saturday for me, I'll push it. But it'll be that weekend sometime we'll get together. And so start cutting, start sewing, and have fun with this, guys. Don't stress about it, okay? Have a good time. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Sandy. She got it right there. Thank you, girl. You're so on it. Thank you. I appreciate it. Oh, Angela Bowman, I didn't see you come on. I'm sorry. Hi, girl. Bye, girl. I'm so sorry. Oh, you're welcome, Patty. More coming. More coming. That's for sure. All right, guys. I will be doing a work with me tomorrow night also. So hope to see some of you there too. I'll see you at 6:30 tomorrow night Central Standard Time if you can. If not, I will see you all you guys soon. All right. We'll talk to you later and love you guys. Bye.